right, so I am here. This is the 10th episode of On That Note, which is pretty crazy. And my guest today is Danielle Durack. Durack?
Yeah, that was good.
I meant good.
Yeah.
And she is a really talented singer-songwriter here in Arizona. And she is putting out a bunch of new material coming up. And so I wanted to sit down and talk with her about her new single called Last Summer. So where I usually like to start is like, what was the first part of that song that you wrote? Was it a melody? Was it a guitar part? Was it a lyric?
I'm pretty sure it was the guitar part.
Okay.
It was, I'm almost positive. Sitting in my bedroom on the floor, just kind of like angrily jamming out some chords, and that's sometimes how my songs start.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that guitar part is interesting because you're doing like kind of that E to E over F sharp kind of thing.
Yeah.
Which is kind of an unconventional sound. So what attracted you to that inversion there, kind of?
Yeah, I mean, so the first thing that attracted me to it is like I'm not very good at guitar. It's like easy to play. It's kind of one of my go-tos. Like, it's an easy little motion that sounds like I like the little dissonance there.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, again, easy to play, easy to play really hard.
Okay, cool. So I was playing that a little wrong too, because you're keeping that A string open.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, so it's F sharp, A, E. Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, that's a slightly different vibe than what I had. That's cool. And so then when you're hearing that kind of dissonance or that kind of weird suspended vibe, and then you're trying to put a vocal melody on top of it, what is your kind of approach there?
Oh man, I guess I just like sing. I just start singing. There's not like a lot of thought that goes into it as far as like the melody goes. It's like whatever kind of feels right and like suits the chord and like specifically like the rhythm that I'm playing. Like I don't know, it writes itself. I feel like more than anything.
Nice. I'm very jealous of that. Because talking to a couple vocalists recently on the show, they've all been like, "Yeah, no, I just do it by ear," and I'm like, cool, yeah. I wish I could do that. So that kind of melody starts off with like the has been slipping through my fingers.
Yeah.
And so you're kind of feeling it out by ear, but how do you match the melody with the words, or like what usually goes into that kind of process?
Yeah, that's like always interesting. Like I've talked to people who do like poetry, and they like make it into melodies, but that's never been something that I'm able to do. Because again, I feel like the like if the melody and the rhythm for me don't come at like the same time, it's like it feels forced or it's just not good, and like I don't know, I'll start kind of mumbling like lyrics, and if something sticks, I can kind of go like I don't know, go from there.
Okay.
Like, take it and run with it. Yeah.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, it does. I mean, yeah. And all these things are always, it's always interesting to hear different processes, because some people are very like regimented and like this is how I do it, and other people are kind of like, oh, it just kind of comes to me, or I flow with it.
Yeah.
And then one thing I do have a question too is like lyrically, I mean the kind of the gist of the song is talking about like kind of rediscovering, I'm assuming, what made you start playing music is kind of the vibe. So at what point does that like emotional or kind of thematic content come in? Is it like I got a guitar part and this is kind of what's on my mind, or is it okay.
Yeah, pretty much like all of my songs are like diary entries.
Okay.
They're just putting out into the world. It's whether I released music or not, like it would be something that I like needed to do for my like personal sanity.
Okay.
And yeah, like work through things myself. It's a very like therapeutic thing for me. So yeah, very much what's going on like in my brain and things that I need to get out.
Got it. And then it goes from, there's like the like A section of the verse, and there's kind of like the second section of each verse where the drums come in, as well as like some electric piano kind of vibes. That drum rhythm is very, very simple, but that bass drum is like huge. It's like this huge boomy thing. Like what Is that a real bass drum? Okay.
It was a war drum.
Yeah?
Yeah, it was like this giant blue war drum.
Mm-hmm.
We recorded at Wave Lab in Tucson, and the guy Sam Rawson, the guy who recorded and mixed everything, he's like this very like awesome, excitable young man, and like
as if you're like a 40-year-old woman. He's an awesome, excitable young man.
Oh my God. But he saw this war drum, like it was like up in this like loft area in the studio. He's like, I want that. Like we had to like go get it down and everything, and it sounded like absolute like garbage. But he like mixed it to like I don't know. I'm like stoked that he did it. And this song, like I don't know, the way that I envisioned it, like it turned out like so different the way it ended up being recording in like the best way.
Okay. In what ways did it turn out? Like what did you envision, and how was that kind of shifted as the process went on?
I saw it as this like I don't even know, like this front bottom-y like sounding thing. There was like when in my like original demo that I recorded, there was this like trumpet part at the end that like Sam fought me on. Like he was like, no, like it sounds so ridiculous, like you can't do it. And it was like I was like, no, like I need this for me. And he ended up, he was like, no horn part, and like everyone else agreed with him. I was like, all right, no horn part. I guess I don't need to dig my heels in on the trumpet.
Mm-hmm. That's funny. And then and the big bass drum works really well because there's not a bass on the song, so it has that room. And then the keyboard part is really interesting to me because it seems to be operating independently of the guitar part almost. What did you, because you played the keyboard, I'm assuming. What did you kind of see as the keyboard's role in that section or throughout the song? What was the goal of that keyboard part?
I don't know. That was from like the original demo, so I did that on my own months like prior to actually like recording it. And I think I just like heard the little line in my like the. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay, interesting. Because that part kind of seemed to be almost more than the chords kind of directing the harmonic flow from my perspective. Like it was kind of like this is kind of more of like where because the guitar part is static for pretty much. Is it the same guitar part through the whole song?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense because I was hearing an A in the chorus.
Yeah.
But like that's coming from this guy open.
Yeah.
Okay. That's all starting to connect now. Yeah. And so when you are writing a song where the guitar part stays consistent throughout the entire thing, how do you approach trying to come up with sort of a build? Because the song definitely has like a steady ramp up to these kind of like more intense ending chorus. So how do you build to that point?
For this song, it was like particularly challenging. Like a lot of my songs that I've written are very like, first of all, I like to write on guitar because it's like, I don't know, for some reason it's like more of like a physical thing, and it lets me like get out of, and then I like the theory part on like, I like understand theory way more on piano, so it kind of gets in my head and like messes with me. So like the guitar, but I'm like bad at guitar, so like like most of my songs are like very like repetitive or like very easy, very like simple chords. And then once I'm done writing a song, like sometimes I'll take it to the piano and like beef it up essentially, and like write some like better chords, more interesting progressions to it. Once I have like the melody and like the general vibe. But for this one I didn't. I just left it with the guitar chords, and I really struggled. And like so did Sam. So did like the recording process was like kind of challenging because we're like, how do we like differentiate like the different parts, and how do we keep it from sounding like rambling and boring and meditative? But we like, I don't know, we like added some elements, and I think the vocal performance also, like the way that you sing your words makes a huge difference, like the energy you put out. So yeah, that was like kind of how we handled it.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that energy specifically that you're talking about within a vocal performance, like what were some of the things you were thinking as you were approaching this song? Like what types of energies on the verse versus the chorus versus the last chorus, or even the kind of quieter bridge part?
Yeah, I guess just like really like getting back to thinking about where I was like when I wrote it, like thinking about where my head was at when I wrote it. And then also like I'm definitely a perfectionist, and especially like with my voice, I like want it to sound like pretty and like perfect and stuff. And like I made like quite the effort with this collection of songs that are coming out to like not worry as much about it and like try and like translate or communicate like the emotion as opposed to like a polished thing.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then what was the so it goes into the second chorus. The bridge kind of quiets down a little bit. One thing, and I'm assuming kind of similar situation with the chorus where the melody was just kind of coming from what you were hearing in your head. Okay. But one thing I'm always curious about, because it's something I struggle with a lot, is you switch the melody up pretty dramatically in the last chorus to make it kind of more big or more intense, or however you want to think of it.
Yeah.
And so how do you go about doing that? Because that's always something that's been challenging to me, is to take something a melody that already exists and then make it more dramatic for kind of the build-up section of the song.
Gosh, yeah, I think it really is just like I hear it. I in high school I was in jazz choir where like you had to like scat, you had to improv sing, and like I think like learning how to do that and like how to take a pre-existing melody and change it up and like make it more yours and more interesting. Like I think it's just a lot of that.
Okay. So sort of is that what you do? Like when you actually write it, you're just sitting there improvising over it until you kind of find something that sticks. Okay, got it.
Absolutely, yeah.
But that first chorus is going.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah.
And then that outro chorus starts on that A note and just kind of.
Yeah.
Doing that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so like there's a higher register element to it. Is that like a conscious thought, like I'll go higher to make it more dramatic, or is it literally just like whatever you're feeling?
I don't know if it's like a conscious like higher like will be like better, but it's like I think it's a natural like a subconscious like, oh, I'll just be louder and like more like I don't know, I'll just, because your ear catches higher frequencies a little bit better. I think. I've heard that.
I mean, they're higher, so they stand out.
So it's just like I'll just get more like in their face about it.
And then that one. So the last chorus, along with having that melody shift, which is really cool, I thought. I like that part a lot. It also introduces a more straightforward backbeat kind of groove, where the drums are going 1 2 1 2 3 4 instead of that kind of just snare on the 4 thing. Was that like another attempt at like, we need to separate this part from the previous choruses, so that's how we'll shift it?
Yeah, that was Sam's idea. That was I think that was mostly what it was, but he was just like, this needs to happen at some point, just to like satisfy like my ears. Like it needs to drop.
Got it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's really cool. And so that whole song kind of came together, and it's interesting too. I mean, how much of it was put together in the studio versus how much of it did you have coming in? Because that's always an interesting process to me.
Yeah. I mean, the drums were not decided. I made demos myself, so it was guitar and the little keyboard, like electronic keyboard part, and I think that was it. And then Sam kind of like did some brainstorming, and again the song came out very like different than like what I had in my head, but in like the absolute best way. Like I was like, you knew exactly what I didn't know I wanted.
Minus the trumpet.
Yeah. Still bitter, but it's good.
I would love to hear that demo trumpet part. Now you got me curious.
It's ridiculous.
And then 2 questions I always like to ask everybody, because along with exploring other people's processes, I always want to use this as kind of like a data gathering experiment too. Is like, you mentioned your jazz choir experience, but like what was your musical education process like? Because putting together music like this is very difficult and complicated and takes a lot of intelligent and thoughtful everything. And so, like, how did you learn to do it?
I guess just like the writing my own music, I've never gotten any instruction for. I guess that was more just, that's like trial and error and writing a lot of bad songs, and then like eventually you're like, oh, this is like okay. I could show my friends this one. But like my music education in high school, I was in choir, and that was like huge. We had like a choir instructor that she taught us theory. If you wanted to learn theory, like she would, take the time to like help you with it. I took some piano lessons in high school as well, and then in college I took some like intro and like intermediate theory classes, and like just had like the best time like learning about especially in college. It just got super interesting, and you learn all like the weird things about like music theory and like the history and different tuning systems, and it's like but I think that mostly like experience led up to this. It's like really just, I think failure is like the best the fastest and most effective teacher. And all of the people along the way, all of the music instructors and musical mentors.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Is there, I mean, this is not the most fair question to ask, but it is interesting. Is there any particular failures that stand out as being like, wow, that one really taught me a lot?
Oh man. There's like been like very like, I'm a very like critical person, especially of myself. So like I know when I mess up. Like this isn't like a songwriting thing. This is like a different like thing that I failed at in the music scene. One time I played a show, and Jeff Taylor booked the show. I mean, I don't know. He's like a local booking guy. He works for like Psycho Steve.
Okay.
He booked the show. I was opening the show, and I forgot. I like said the wrong band name when I was like, "Give it up for the next band. They're gonna be awesome." And I called them Bear Ghost, and their name was Bear State. And turns out Jeff Taylor was in that band.
Yeah.
And I was just like, ugh. I literally beat myself up about it for like a week. I was just like, I'm so inconsiderate. They're never gonna have me back. Like, I can't believe I made a mistake like that. And like I apologized to him like after the show, and he just like laughed. He was like, and he actually called me Danielle Durack, and it kind of balanced out, but I still just like felt like a garbage person. I was like, I'm never gonna make it in this industry.
I mean, that's really hard on you, because there is a band called Bear Ghost too, so.
That's what they told me. It's like, okay, I've heard it before for sure, but and ever since then I've started writing down all of the things that I'm gonna say on my like little set list.
Interesting.
Like, make sure to thank the venue. These are the band names.
Tip your bartender.
Yeah, totally.
That's funny. And then the other question I always like to ask too is, and you mentioned it a little bit with your sanity and diary entry kind of style, but like, what has music given you in terms of like things you've gained from it?
Oh man, that's such a beautiful question. Yeah. I don't know. It's given me like a purpose. If anything, like.
I mean, just something small like that.
Yeah. I like feel like, I don't know. Music's like, not that I'm like, I don't know. I'm a dynamic human being. There are other aspects to my like personality, but like I feel like music is the thing that I'm like here to do.
Okay.
I feel like it's the thing that I excel at, the thing that like I actually have to like contribute to the world. Like I don't do math very well. Like my spelling's kind of shit, so this is like my contribution, and I love doing it, and it like it makes me happy, and it like it gives me like, I don't know, fills me up so that I can, I don't know, be a contributing member of the world.
Interesting. That's a very, very, I think, poetic way to put it. It fills me up so I can get stuff out there.
Yeah.
That's cool. And then anything, so this single just came out. Is there a whole album coming out, or is it just an EP, or what's going on?
Yeah, so I don't know what to call it. It's a 7-song thing.
So it's like right in the middle.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's like a long EP or a short album. It's like 30 minutes.
Okay.
So, and it's coming out in January, and it's called Bashful.
Okay.
You heard it here first. And I actually have a new single coming out next Friday as well. So
Awesome.
lots of new things
Yes.
coming.
Well, thank you very much for taking the time to come on and explain your perspective and process, because it is much appreciated, and it's always cool to like learn from other musicians.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. Cool.